What's poppin', y'all? I wanted to talk about a hidden reason that Drake lost the beef with Kendrick Lamar that I don't feel like many people are speaking about, and I think that's the relationship with the media, or lack thereof, in the preceding years to the beef actually happening. So what triggered this thought in my mind was an Azalea Banks tweet thread, of all things. So somebody said, it really took a dashing, brilliant mind such as Azalea for me to understand why Drake may not have won the battle but won the war. I don't necessarily agree with this, but I'm going to read through her thread, which is a couple of tweets, and then go back to illustrating my point on this. Drake already won the war by virtue of Kendrick Lamar, despite whatever pittance of a sum he was paid to come after Drake. I don't think he was paid anything. I think he did it for the love of the hate. Will never be popular enough, tall enough, handsome enough, or fun enough to warrant even a tenth of the $400 to $600 million deal Drake has with UMG. And that's really why everyone is super effing mad at Drake. That's what makes this all so backwards and weird. It's all a bunch of performative, black on black BS being done in hopes of getting a pat on the head from Lucian. It's all very effing gay and pointless if you ask me. Drake has his finger on the pulse of the world. This is the part where I start to agree. There are dudes in Albania, Poland, and Russia wearing USSN Polo Association, duty-free cologne, Burberry plaid, Gucci belts, and Ferrari sunglasses, telling women they are from Italy, aspiring to be Drake and or 50 Cent. This is so pinpoint accurate that it's kind of mind-blowing because most artists and rappers cannot make this reference or even understand this to be true. Kendrick doesn't have that kind of global appeal. This is 100% true, and also why when people say, man, YoungBoy's one of the biggest rappers in the world, I'm just looking at them like, are you insane? It's not even close. 50 Cent's a bigger rapper when it comes to globally, even now, than a YoungBoy. That's not to knock YoungBoy, but it just shows, especially many Americans, how much of a lack of understanding and ignorance they have about the rest of the world, but the arrogance to still proclaim things. Just because someone's a number one rapper here does not mean they're even top 25 in other parts of the world. However, this triggered me into thinking about Drake and Kendrick, and I'm not going to read the rest of the tweet thread because it may be a topic for another video, I'm not promising that, is reporting. A lot of people are saying, man, Kendrick's team is paying off blogs, they're paying off reporters and journalists, radio personalities, this and that. I don't think that was necessarily the case. They for sure ran marketing campaigns to assist in the narrative for Kendrick Lamar. That's 100% true. It's verified. Everyone knows this. But that's not what wins you the beef. Like, if Meek Mill had paid blogs back in 2015, it wouldn't have helped him. The guy didn't drop a record. He was just sitting there. Drake dropped Charged Up and Back to Back, just completely washed him. And then Meek Mill didn't come with anything for, a month or two? And it was whack. So Meek Mill just got washed, and no amount of paying blogs would assist in that. But with Drake, I wouldn't say that people had animosity towards him, but a tweet by Elliot Wilson, who is, I'm not gonna lie, he's a bit of a hater after what I've seen him do in the past couple of weeks. But he would tweet out when Drake announced that he would be doing his stream with not Aiden Ross, where he announced that he would be doing an XQC stream. So Elliot Wilson was one of the people that called this out, and he quoted the tweet and said, "Culture?" ? And I was going to make a video about this topic entirely on its own, but it's great that I can merge it together. And it was actually Aiden Ross and Drake stream on the 26th. This video is going to be about Elliot Wilson. Like, why would Drake do anything quote unquote culture when Kendrick Lamar is talking about, I'm what the culture feeling? So if Drake got quote unquote denied, kicked out, whatever people want to say about from the culture, why would he be going to those media outlets now above all other times? Doesn't make sense, does it? Plus, there's also the nuance that this was a business decision. He has a contract with Stake, so he had to show up and do his thing with Aiden Ross. This was an Aiden Ross comeback to Stake and Kick, or not to Stake, to Kick, who is owned by Stake, but they wanted to have a big comeback stream for Aiden, and what better of a comeback than not only a giveaway, but also with Drake. Whole business decision here. But if you take a look at the year before the beef, 2023, Drake is known not to do too many interviews, but he did a bunch of interviews in 2023. And who were they with? Well, number one, the first one that he did was with none other than Bobby Althoff. So that was the first one where people were saying, what the hell is Drake doing here? And that interview episode appearance was the Sunday Conversation with Caleb Presley. Kodak has had viral clips come out of this, but this podcast, this show, It's underneath Barstool Sports. When you think of Barstool Sports, the last thing on your mind is hip-hop. The majority of people that follow that and are really into the brand, they're not listening to hip-hop like that. Yeah, they're probably enjoying themselves some Drake and some Travis Scott. But you start talking about Rilo Rodriguez, and they're like, what the hell? What is that? Or No Cap, or any number of other rappers. You just talk to them about Ab Soul, and they're scratching their heads and trying to crack open and down a beer. So this was a peculiar appearance for Drake. People didn't dislike it because he had Adonis with him, and it was a little bit endearing. However, this pattern continued. So after this, he appears on Yachty's podcast for, it was a sunglass brand, but it was called Future Mood, and it was like a moody conversation. It was the debut. Yachty was kicking it with Drake a lot during this time. We've come to find out that Yachty's helped Drake write, laid down reference tracks for Drake, given Drake entire songs that he had. So they were really close. So here he is doing another long form media appearance. This is over 30 minutes, and it's not with a main hip hop outlet. Sure, Yachty's a rapper, but people are looking at, okay, Drake, is this a press run? What are you doing here? And this isn't as quote unquote bad, if you want to call it that, as the Barstool. But where it really peaked was the Bobby Althaf appearance 6 months later in August when he did her podcast. So people are looking at like, yo, who's this Bobby Althaf girl, this white Jewish girl, whatever you want to label her as? She's not really hip hop. People are wondering. There was a lot of hate that Bobby Althaf got. And I think a lot of it was unwarranted because the vigor to which people were hating on her was furious. It was to another level. And I don't think she necessarily did anything wrong. A lot of us were just curious. Where did she come from? Why is she so lit? People are like, oh, she was a mommy TikToker. Yeah, you don't go from being a mommy TikToker to having all of these guests that she was having in a crazy podcast run. And I don't know if this was in July or August, one of the two, because the podcast ended up getting taken down. So people were looking at this, okay, is Drake gonna come back? Drake doesn't do any media with any hip-hop journalists, nothing. And on top of that, the only person that he would talk to when the beef started was academics, kind of like leaking him information here and there. So if you're a media outlet, think if you're The Breakfast Club, think if you're Elliott Wilson, you're driving a lot of the narratives in hip-hop. Sure, the whole general public, they may not even care that Drake lost. They're listening to whatever hit songs he may drop next. Now, the issue with him and UMG, the songs won't be hits, and those normal people that don't really care what's going on in hip-hop, they're not even going to hear about new Drake songs if UMG isn't there to pull the lever to really get the reach going. So that's where he needs hip-hop media personalities and people that spread everything in the genre. So those guys, they're looking at it like, man, Drake's been doing all this media in 2023. The beef is happening in 2024. I think there's an element of, man, screw this guy. And that's not to say that Kendrick Lamar was supporting them or showing up and doing interviews with them, which he does here and there, but he's less visible and less collaborative, if you want to call it that, with the media than Drake is. But I don't think he garnered their ire because Kendrick was not doing all these other outlets that are outside of hip hop. So when Kendrick takes this angle of, oh, I'm the culture and you're an outsider, and you have other people like Rick Ross hopping on board, I think a lot of media outlets off rip were not too favorable towards Drake. The only one, if you want to call it that, and this is the thing, is Kendrick genuinely won the beef. And in the beginning, most outlets were being fair in terms of, yo, Drake's cooking right now. Where is Kendrick Lamar? Are we going to see a performance from him? And then after that happened, everybody started moving towards his side, even though there were some big missteps by Kendrick Lamar, which is the whole daughter thing that doesn't exist. I know people are going to say, no, his dad was talking about his granddaughter on his IG. Man, that's the dad's daughter's daughter. Like, come on now. Drake could not hide a daughter this effectively, especially if she was in the US or Canada or the UK. Maybe if he's got a daughter somewhere in Gambia, perhaps. Well, we haven't seen anything like that. Now, I know somebody from Gambia is going to comment, damn, like, shout out to Gambia. We've probably got one viewer from there. So this caused everyone to champion Kendrick Lamar, and I genuinely think that they wanted him to win more than Drake. And Kendrick won regardless, but the only outlet that was supporting Drake was DJ Academics. And that's because Drake would give him some information. Drake would, and I think there may have been some envy between these other outlets and Academics too, which fueled them wanting to support Kendrick even more and knock Drake, because they're looking at it like, yo, Drake is telling Academics, or Academics is premiering songs damn near on stream. He's showing up exactly when it drops. People are notifying him of that, and he's getting access that we're not. Granted, Drake still never even addressed Academics publicly or called into him, and Academics still demonstrated his loyalty despite other moments in the past where Drake calls into a Kai Cenat stream, for instance, or Drake is kicking it with XQC more recently, even though that's a contractual obligation. People are looking at these things, especially within hip-hop, that have an influence and a voice, and they feel abandoned. So it's no surprise that they're not just going to jump and support Drake. And I think Drake was just so used to, for so long, having the support of all of these outlets that he took it for granted and felt like even if he didn't maintain these relationships, he just needed to get the youth and hit up these streamers, which is very strategic, but I don't know how authentic it comes off, but that may be a topic for another day. I don't want to drag this on for too long, but let me know what you guys think about that in the comments. Do you think there's some validity to what I'm saying, and that Drake neglecting a lot, not just neglecting a lot of media, but choosing to appear on media that is so far removed from hip-hop that it almost feels like a spit in the face or an insult to hip-hop media outlets that for so long supported Drake, contributed to a stronger narrative for Kendrick Lamar? Or am I just tripping and they were being fair? Now, granted, even if they were being fair, I still think Kendrick won. But yeah, and this is why I think they're not offering grace to Drake even post beef. They're still on his head top, and that's with the Fighting Irish song, which also contributed to me forming this opinion. But the Fighting Irish song will be its own video. That will actually come out. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for watching. Peace.